All issues discussed on the following podcast are specifically relevant to Memphis and unincorporated Shelby County, including Arlington, Germantown, Lakeland, and Millington. Other jurisdictions, including Bartlett and Collierville, may have policies and procedures which differ from those discussed here. Check with your local building department to determine their requirements. Now, please join us for the Building Beat. Welcome to the Building Beat. My name is Scott Walkup. I'm the administrator for Shelby County's Department of Housing, and I'm joined today by one of my housing department colleagues, Anita Tate. Anita is the program manager for our lead-based paint hazard control program. Today we'll be discussing the lead hazard control program and how this program is beneficial to city and county residents. Thank you for joining me in this episode, Anita. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I've been knowing you for over 25 years now, but
long time.
Fill the rest of us in.
Long time. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I am Anita Tate, and I have been involved with the lead program for over 30 years. As far back as 1995, I was the program manager for the City of Memphis Lead Hazard Reduction Program. So I've been in this lead field for a long time. And even though I've been involved with it for a long time, there's still much work to be done. So that is why I'm so glad to have the opportunity to talk more about lead, so that to make the community more aware that there are hazards out there and how the hazards need to be addressed.
So in 1978, the Environmental Protection Agency banned lead, the use of lead in residential paint. More than a third of the homes in Shelby County were built prior to 1978. So I say that just to give everyone a sense of the scope of the problem in Shelby County. We've got a lot of houses built before 1978, and a lot of them are carrying these lead hazards still. Since 1994, Shelby County has utilized grants from HUD to address lead-based paint hazards in homes in Memphis and elsewhere in Shelby County. During those 30 years, we've evaluated over 3,000 residential housing units and addressed lead-based paint hazards in more than 1,400 homes. So my question for you, Anita, is what does lead do to the body? Why is childhood lead poisoning prevention even important?
Children under the age of 5 are the ones that are most susceptible to being poisoned with lead, and that is because they tend to put their hands in their mouths a lot. The body is affected in a way that most people wouldn't even imagine. So in small children under the age of 5, since they are still developing, once they get exposed to lead, it can affect the brain. And we all know that once the brain is affected, it controls every system in the body. And the bad thing about the lead is that although it's only in the blood for 6 to 8 weeks, it remains in the body for 30 years. So the more lead that a child ingests, the more dangerous the lead becomes. Their brains are affected in that they can't learn when they go to school. They tend to act out. Aggressive behavior. Some children are now being diagnosed as having autism, and it's being tied to lead. So that tells you right there that it's a poison, and it's very dangerous. It's an accumulative poison. So if they're exposed over years and years, the lead that builds up in their blood gets higher and higher. So this is why we are out here in the community, particularly targeting those homes where children under the age of 6 reside or visit, or at least 6 hours a day.
That hand-to-mouth contact is important for people to recognize because of lead dust being the biggest pathway to exposure. It's not so much the commercial some people might remember from 25, 30 years ago where children were eating the paint chips, but it goes beyond that. It's windows and doors, friction surfaces that generate dust, and children crawl around and get that dust in their mouths through their playing with their toys, teething on things of that nature. So how do you identify lead-based paint in the home? How does one know if they have lead?
First of all, in any home that was built before 1978, there is a potential that there could be lead-based paint. You can't look at it and determine that it's lead. So there is a machine that is used. It's an XRF machine, similar to an X-ray machine, that reads through several layers of paint. And if there is lead-based paint, this machine will pick it up. It could be layers and layers beneath the surface, but this machine is so powerful that it can determine whether or not there is lead beneath that surface. If it comes back with 1.0 micrograms, then that's a determination that there is lead. Not only do we check for lead, but as you mentioned, Scott, the children are most likely to get poisoned through lead dust. So dust wipes are done room for room on floors and windows, exterior porches, and those dust wipes are sent to a lab. The lab analyzes those dust wipes, and if those samples come back at levels that are above what HUD deems to be safe, then that means that that child is exposed to lead dust. We also check on the exterior of the home along the drip line. We check the soil, because if the paint on the outside is lead-based paint and it's peeling and chipping or chalking and falling onto the soil, then that lead is contaminating that dirt. So small children may be out playing and getting all this dirt on the bottom of their shoes, or, they're putting their hands in their mouths. So they're getting poisoned that way as well. Even adults walking through the dirt or tracking it into the home. And believe it or not, if you have dogs or cats and they're going in and out, then they're tracking it into the home. So it's so many ways for children to get poisoned, and things that we don't think about, from day to day. And that's why opportunities like this to get the word out and raise awareness is so very important.
So our organization has a team of 4 people, Anita and 3 other staff people, that work together to help out families that are facing lead-based paint hazards in their homes. Tell us about that program. Who's eligible for assistance from Shelby County to deal with lead in their home, and what are the terms of the assistance?
Well, first of all, we screen you to determine if your home was built before 1978. You can either be the homeowner or you can be the tenant. We also determine whether or not there's a child living in that home or visiting that home that's under the age of 5. And we use the HUD income guidelines to determine whether or not you're income eligible for the program. The terms are, we will put a 1-year lien on your home, but that lien goes away after the 1 year. And that lien is for the total amount of whatever we invested in that home in terms of lead remediation. The reason for that is because on the landlord side, we don't want the landlord to go up on the rent or put the tenant out. And by the way, that lien is 3 years. If it's a rental property, we put a 3-year lien on it. If it's a homeowner, we put a 1-year lien on it. But we don't want to invest the money in making this home lead safe and then a person move out. So that's the purpose for the lien.
So if a homeowner applies for assistance, what do you do? What's the next step? What do you do if you find lead in their home?
Okay, the homeowner is eligible, and we schedule our environmental consultants to go out to test the home for lead-based paint, lead dust, and lead in the soil. At that point, once we receive that lead inspection from our environmental consultant, the staff develops a scope of work to address those hazards. We will either remove the hazards entirely, which is called abatement, or we will do hazard reduction, which we just do interim controls like wet scraping the paint and repainting it with a particular primer and a particular paint. Once that's done, we have the scope of work is bidded out for contractors that are certified through the state as licensed contractor supervisors for lead to go in and remediate or abate those items that we have in the scope of work. Once we select that contractor, which is based off of the bid, whether that contractor has the lowest bid or not, we will activate the contract, The contractor starts the work, and the inspectors that are on staff shadow that contractor from inception to completion. Once all of the work has been completed, we have our environmental company come back and they do dust wipes on the end to determine whether or not all the lead hazards have been cleaned and that the house is safe for the family to go back to their normal routine. So at that point, we're checking, one, to see if all of the items that were listed on the lead hazard risk assessment report were addressed. And secondly, did that contractor leave any lead dust above the HUD limits behind? If those two things are met, then that home is considered lead safe.
What makes a contractor qualified to address lead-based paint hazards and do this work?
Contractor first has to go through a week-long class that is conducted by a trainer that's certified through the state of Tennessee, and it meets the HUD guidelines as well. And that those contractors go through the week-long class. After that, they take a test with that trainer, and then they have to take a test with the state of Tennessee Department of Environmental and Conservation. The test is not an easy test. However, most of the contractors are successful in passing it because they've been familiar with the work for several years. Once they receive their certification from the state and they meet all of our other criteria to get on the Shelby County vendor list, they are able to participate in the lead program.
So we may have some contractors out there listening, some builders. If they're interested in getting into this kind of work, what should they do?
They can contact me at Shelby County Department of Housing, and my number is 222-7604. From there, I will direct them as to what the next steps are to get on our list. And by the way, I'd like to mention that in our grant, we do have funds where we can reimburse that contractor for going through the training, as well as for sending his workers through the training. In addition to that, we have some funds there because there are fees that you have to pay the state to get your license. We can reimburse you for some of those fees as well. So you really cannot beat this program. We've got opportunity for you to learn how to do this work, and we have an opportunity for you to have your home made lead safe.
Similarly, if there's a family out there listening and they're concerned, they have a child under 6 in the house, what do they need to do? Who should they contact?
Again, they can reach out to myself at 222-7604 or our intake coordinator, who is Antoinette Knowlton, and her number is 222-7605. From there, all we need is your email address, and we can send you a link to our application portal. And you go onto that portal, register, so you can go in and out whenever you get an opportunity to, and complete the 12 steps to make your application to get the lead hazard inspection done on your home. We can see all of your information, so if you run into a snag along the way and you don't know what to do next, you can just contact either Antoinette or myself, and we can pull the application up and tell you what you need to do from there. It's a lot of paperwork, but we're here to help walk the applicant through the process and make it as painless as possible.
The work that you do is incredibly important and truly serves our community. At the end of the day, what about this work continues to drive you forward, Anita?
All I had to see many years ago when I first started dealing with the lead was one child that had been affected by lead hazards. And that did it for me, because I figure that the child has no control over where they live. They go where the parent or the guardian takes them. So when I see that, as I go out and do this work, I'm motivated over and over and over again to keep pushing and keep trying to make every home in our community that was built before 1978 and where there are lead hazards, make those homes safe for these babies so that they can continue to grow and thrive and be the best that they can be. So that's all that I needed was that one child, and that did it for me.
Well, I want to thank you for joining me for this episode today. As always, it's incredible to witness the continuous strides your team is making in terms of teaching the community about the dangers of lead and how it adversely affects their health and day-to-day lives, especially the children, the youngest in our community. Thank you to our listeners for joining us on this episode of The Building Beat.
Thank you for listening to The Building Beat. Executive producers are Director John Zena and Deputy Director Nadia Logan Robinson. Associate producer is me, Brianna Miller. Special thanks to Ina Esco, artist in residence with the Memphis Library Foundation and the Memphis Public Libraries. The song featured in the show is Hush by the Mason Affair. This is a production of the Memphis and Shelby County Division of Planning and Development. To learn more about this podcast and our work, visit our website, develop901.com.